Think about the Golden State Warriors and what they just did here. Chris Paul expiring contract with the team option for next season.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody expects them to pick that up. Klay Thompson expiring contract. Now, Draymond Green, we don't know what's going to happen here as he seeks 3 years, $100 million, 3 years, $90 million. We got some Brian Windhorst sound that we'll go to that he highlights as the Sacramento Kings could be a player in the Draymond Green negotiations. Gary Payton II, 2 years, $17 million left, right? Andrew Wiggins with the 4-year, $109 million contract. So you got 2 expiry contracts at least. Now, what if the Warriors pivoted here? Because Joe Lacob has said, we will win no matter what. We will win, we will win, we will win. And he doesn't believe in rebuilding. So how can you rebuild while resetting your books for the foreseeable future?
It's a great question.
How can you do that? Well, there's a couple ways here. This year, you eat the luxury tax bill, but how do you do it? Let's just say they sign a trade. Oh, Siri, shut up, Siri. Hey, Siri, shut up. That's never happened before.
That's pretty funny.
Don't be mean to the AI, Bonte. They're going to take over, man.
Dude, here, I got information about the tax bill. No, not those taxes. So, Andrew Wiggins, we would say...
Don't put my business out on the street.
Right, come on, Siri. You would say that Andrew Wiggins, his deal, 4 years, $109 million, is very team-friendly.
$24 million to me for a guy who's in his prime. What is he, 27, 28?
28 years old.
28? Yeah, it feels like a really good deal.
Very good deal.
Especially for a two-way player because he provides what everyone's looking for. He can hit threes, but he's a 3-and-D guy with some athleticism.
So 24, 26, 28, then a player option for $30 million at the end of his contract. That's a very attractive contract for a team that may rebuild or want to take in some money. Now, what if the Warriors or Joe Lacob have said, you know what, we're going to pivot here with the new CBA and trying to get under the tax. We got to make some moves, which is why they made the Jordan Poole move. His extension kicks in. They're saying, you know what, we don't want to be stuck with that money. Even though we believe he could be a good player, let's reset our books by trading a guy who, look, as of last year, you had to pick one maybe, or you wanted to give a kid a fresh start. You gave Jordan Poole a fresh start and took on an expiring contract with the player who may be a good fit for the second unit, it's Chris Paul. We'll get into that in a second. But what the Warriors are pivoting, Shasky, and for the next 3 years, they take on this L.A. Rams mentality with Stan Kroenke, where they're going to take on a bunch of money early on in these deals. And where I'm getting at here is, what if they don't re-sign Draymond Green? Or they get Draymond Green to agree to a sign and trade, and they take on another expiring contract. Or they want to dangle Andrew Wiggins and say, you know what, he's not untouchable, and we want to reset our books for the foreseeable future. Let's take on another expiring contract. And what I'm getting at here is, what if you did a hypothetical and you said, Andrew Wiggins, you want to go home to Toronto? Well, here you go. We'll take on Pascal Siakam for the 1 year, $37 million deal and have another expiring contract. So where you got Klay Thompson, CP3, and Pascal Siakam, and you say, you know what? We're going to still compete and try to win this year, but we got a bunch of expiring contracts to where we could pivot next year and be in play for another big boy and maybe play this baby year by year instead of the whole 2 timeline. What's going to happen in 5 years with Kuminga and Moody? You just say, you know what? We're going to take a Rams approach to this baby for the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay, then, so let's put the timeline thing to the side for just a second. What about a lot of people are married to Steph, Clay, Dre? So in this scenario that you're laying out, are they married to Steph, Clay, Dre?
They're not. They're basically saying...
So you're saying Clay will expire and they're going to either let him walk or whatever.
Or figure it out later. But at least you had that option.
Okay.
It's about how do you be flexible? How are you flexible as a franchise?
Well, that would be the best. To me, that would be give them the most wiggle room. And I love it, quite honestly. But the problem is, it feels like, to me, just my interpretation, a lot of Warrior fans want to go down with the ship, which is what they say a lot. So, like, for example, Mark Stein puts out a report, and he's insinuating what everyone's saying. And I don't know how tapped in he is on the situation or what. Like, I'm just telling you what he said. But he's like, yeah, this gives them opportunity after trading Jordan Poole to re-sign Klay Thompson to X millions of dollars or Draymond Green X million. If you sign Draymond Green to $30-something million for the next 3 or 4 years, so Dre and Steph alone, that's $80 million to $90 million of the cap.
Exactly.
Just those two.
Exactly. If they're married to them.
You married yourself up to those two. B, the cap is 112. That's minimum. Maximum 136. That doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room. Now, Right now, Wiggins is on contract for another 25. So let's go 90 million plus 20, 115. Boom, 3 players. Dre, Steph, and Wiggins gets you right to the minimum. So right there, you're restricted in what you could bring in. So even if Chris Paul expires, okay, you can't just go out and get a free agent to give maximum money. You can with the Clay slot.
Now, what if they don't re-sign Dre? Or what if Draymond does agree to a sign and trade?
To me,
because
if
here's
you
the
don't
thing.
sign Dre, that opens things up so that when that Clay deal expires,
this is where I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Here. So I don't know how untouchable Andrew Wiggins is.
I hope I'm not confusing people with all the salary talk.
No. Listen, just stop. You're fine. Basically, Draymond Green is a big key in this equation. What if you get him to do a sign and trade? What if Draymond Green says, you know what? That's about it here, because Brian Windhorst, will play this out in a second, was talking about the Sacramento Kings being a player for Draymond Green. Now, I don't know if Sacramento would agree to a sign and trade with the Golden State Warriors. I don't know how that would work. But if you did and you got another player, and maybe, I don't know how everybody in the Warriors organization felt about Andrew Wiggins missing 2 months of action. Now, we get the situation. It's a private matter, but he missed it 2 months. But it doesn't mean that everybody's on board with it. What if they say, you know what? That contract's coming into play. He's 28 years old, and sure, it is team-friendly, but we can dangle this contract and this player and maybe get a player back on an expiring deal.
If we were just going current team,
right,
what they have currently on their roster, it's probably the most valuable asset in terms of age, position, value on the court, and then you contrast it with the amount of money he's making and how others would view it.
No doubt.
Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. So
outside of Steph.
And let's agree with this. The Warriors do not want to rebuild.
Yes.
They want to win.
Totally agree.
Right? They want to maximize the window of Stephen Curry.
Absolutely.
So in this hypothetical, and where they're trying to have long-term flexibility with their salary cap and be players when Giannis Antetokounmpo is a free agent and has a player option in a couple years, or if Embiid becomes disgruntled, you want to put yourself in a position. Kawhi Leonard. You want to put yourself in a position to be attractive and be a player in free agency for many years to come while resetting your books. Zion Williamson is definitely out there.
I would love Zion Williamson.
So, but if you say Andrew Wiggins, he's not untouchable, we can dangle him and get another expiring contract. Well, you got an expiring contract in Pascal Siakam. I don't think the world of Pascal Siakam. I think he's a flawed player at times, but he's an interesting piece.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden, if you're the Golden State Warriors, you're saying we can still compete with Steph, Clay, CP3, Pascal Siakam.
For 1 year.
For 1 year. Now, what happens with Draymond Green, we have no idea. But at least for 1 year, you can compete for a championship. You got 3 players on contract years. And then after the end of the year, you're saying, where are we at? Did we win a championship? How did we reset? How did we pivot? You know what I'm saying?
No,
you get yourself financial flexibility while still being able to compete.
I love it. I love the idea of it, and I'm so totally open to it. It would be a dramatic organizational philosophical shift.
Huge shift.
Because if I were to put down one thing, I'd be like, loyalty to the core would be their number one ethos over the last however many years.
Right.
That would be anti what they've been doing for a long time. But if we're being honest, whenever you bring in a new person at like for example, when we had a quarterback, Kirk Cousins, right? Minnesota Vikings. If Minnesota ever moves off Kirk Cousins, I bet they go in a completely different direction. And they go with an athlete. No doubt. When you have a player's manager for a long time, what do you end up doing when you get rid of that guy? You bring in an authoritarian, a dictator.
Old school guy.
Right? You go in the opposite direction. Right now, I don't think Dunleavy is the complete opposite direction of Bob, but it sure feels like they're changing their philosophy when it comes to the roster to the other end of the spectrum. We're about raw upside projects. Now everything's like, I need something that's a little more finished.
Right. So
there has been an organizational shift.
And listen, Joe Lacob may not like it, but he's always said he's light years ahead of everybody. So how do you get light years ahead of the league with the new CBA, with the new salary, with the tax apron? How do you get light years ahead?
Guy? Who's their Parag?
They've got a couple guys in the front office. They got a team. Yeah. They got a team of guys. I'll pull the names up in a second. Yeah. They got a team of guys who work all the caps or whatnot.
And I think the biggest thing for me, as you lay this whole thing out, right now they're at 270. Like I'm looking at it right now, right? So if you're looking at their tax bill, because if you're going to say that Jordan Poole costs too much, then we all need to educate ourselves on the salary cap. Right now, their entire cap is 181, but after the taxing, you're looking
Right.
at $250 million. That's what they're going to be paying. If Draymond opts in and they sign a 3-year and doesn't opt in, they sign a three-year extension, $30 million a year, approximately. It's going to cost you another $100 to $110 million.
Yep.
You're looking at a $375, $400 million total deal. Total deal. And then your tax hits are going to continue to be penal because you're so over it. To me, if you're going to shift financially and reset things and give yourself wiggle room, right now is the time to do it.
Right now is the time to do it.
If you're not married to the Dre, Clay, Steph, triumphant.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. So that's where I'm at. Are they married to this roster?
Okay.
Are they done with this? Are they seriously? The Chris Paul deal just seems they're not finished. Now I do think they're keeping Jonathan Kuminga. They do. I strongly believe they're keeping Jonathan Kuminga, but I don't think they're finished. And this whole Draymond Green thing, which, what if he does get $90 million from elsewhere? What if the Warriors say we're not giving you $100 million over 3 years? Maybe this is just a leverage play from Draymond Green's camp. Now we see Naz Reid agree to a deal yesterday. If Draymond Green was coming back, you made this point. Maybe that deal's already done. Maybe that deal's already announced. We have no idea.
It feels like to me, if they were going to bring Dre back, they would be out in front with it. So that way, when they want to get vet min guys elsewhere, it's the word is out there. You know what I mean?
It is out there. It is out there. But if they're not married to Draymond and he agrees to a sign and trade, then I think it leaves the table. I think it leaves things open for an Andrew Wiggins trade for another expiring deal. So where you say we can use this vision 1 year, because everybody has the free agencies up for next year, free agent players for next year, the year after. You know what's happening. You know there's going to be a disgruntled star or two. So all I'm saying is maybe you put yourself in position with Stephen Curry. You have Kevon Looney on a team-friendly deal, 2 years left, $15.5 million, one of the biggest bargains in the NBA. GP2's got 2 years, $17 million. Maybe he's a piece you attach to another player.
If you're looking at the $30 million max players that are out there currently, GP2 plus Wiggins gets you, and obviously
player.
Future picks, gets you a Paul George, for example.
Exactly. So you may be able to swing some deals here. And if you do Paul George, okay, you got years left on the deal. You marry Paul George with Stephen Curry. I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that at all. But what if it gets you another expiring contract?
I just threw his name out there because he was a $35 million player.
But what I like is that now you have financial flexibility if you go this route. And you know what? I wouldn't mind. Everybody would say, oh my gosh, the Warriors have all these expiring contracts. Well, you got a bunch of it. Look at the Toronto Raptors, for example. The Toronto Raptors, when they won their championship in 2019, Kawhi was on an expiring deal. They knew that. They knew Fred VanVleet was coming up in a couple years. They knew Pascal Siakam was coming up in a couple years. They knew Marc Gasol was probably going to come off the books. They knew Kyle Lowry in a couple years was going to come off the books. They went all in on the Kawhi for 1 year to say, we're going to put ourselves in the best position to win an NBA championship. The Warriors can still do that by flipping some things around as long as you have Stephen Curry and you build a roster around him.